reputations. South Africa, for example, increased its score by 1.2 in the most recent edition of the Global Soft Power Index, but we actually fell 3 places, mainly because all the other countries improved their scores by an average of 3. So we were doing well, but not necessarily as well as others. So when we're looking at numbers here, South Africa with its over 14 million searches last year, broken down into the categories. I mean, you can see that tourism and prominence are the 2 largest categories when searched, 8 million for tourism. Although, I mean, these numbers are, as the study seems to point to, less than, our competitors. Just have to look at the numbers there, of Turkey or Turkey, Brazil for prominence, Vietnam. But in saying so, there's been an improvement in the amount of searches, or an increase in the amount of searches. So we see for tourism, it's 17%, the highest increase. We see an increase in prominence of 10%. And so, the gap is being closed. But I mean, obviously, there's a lot more to be done to make it, to get us up there and make the digital demand, or the digital demand is congruent with the perceptions of South Africa itself, and a key part in that is digital footprint. Now, I mean, when looking at what is searched on South Africa, on these 5 dimensions, I mean, we can look at the other dimensions, but tourism has, the most searches. And we're looking at destinations, you're looking at animal watching, in the 800,000 destinations, over 1 million. And so, these are the main hashtags that people look at when they look at South Africa. And I mean, as from a tourism perspective, even local gastronomy, which falls under the provenance category, can be seen, or can influence and be seen as tourism. So too could issues around sports, if used correctly. And that does potent and provide good opportunities, to actually influence and ensure that the brand results in an actual offer. So in a sense, sweetening the deal. Now we look at markets. The study looks. So now we look at markets. This is the main, when looking at the digital demand, those numbers come from these countries mostly. From a tourism perspective, you can see the USA, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, India. India seems to be in most of these categories as a growing market. But I mean, the traditional USA, UK, Germany, all across these categories, is the most significant markets from where these searches are coming from. I mean, what you may not see there is China. And the main reason is because, for the most part, Chinese tourists, businesses use more direct channels, when trying to find information, but also many of them use VPNs. And so, looking at demand, yes, they do have, we do look at Baidu, but obviously if you're searching and changing your location, you're not going to be picked up as coming from China. And generally, those coming to South Africa do use VPNs. So what is being looked at when people are looking at South Africa? You can see issues that the genocide case, but you can also see issues around rugby, sports, tourism. These are the main factors. And before we conclude, so this is how our perceptions, our political stances are influencing our perceptions. We can see there that it's, on our peacekeeping, it's improved our perceptions in the views or in the minds of over 60% of people. Similarly, when it comes to Israel-Palestine, we specifically asked about the genocide intent case, over 50% saying it's actually made them see South Africa better. And even in the more contentious issue of Russia-Ukraine, you can see 34% say it's improved, but the big 50% say they don't even really worry. So it actually makes no difference. And basically, as we're seeing, good, for example, is now associated with South Africa in terms of associations. Our score in prominence has improved. I think we're only behind the UAE and UK, as we'll see in the next slide. So this is how we compare to the other different markets that we looked at on the 5 dimensions, specifically your exports, your prominence, your investments, your talent, and your tourism. As we can see, most categories we are actually in third behind the UK and UAE. The UAE is seen as one of the most successful brands in the past couple of years, mainly because of its economic strength, but also it's placed a big emphasis on reputation. We've seen it host the Dubai Expo, COP28, and I mean, these big events do improve perceptions, and we can take lessons, but we basically just behind there. On tourism, we seem to be the least. We're sitting at number 7. Mainly because also, many of the countries surveyed or benchmarked, Vietnam, Thailand, are big tourist, Egypt are very big tourist destinations, but also there's a clustering in the numbers. So yes, the actual results are on the ground are different to how the perceptions are. Second last slide. So I mean, the big issue in our, at least we should all give ourselves a hand, because South Africa has been seen as improved in the minds of 45% of people surveyed. You look, there's only a 4% decrease or drop. So there's a net positive of 41% of people see South Africa better in 2023, 2024 than when compared to 2022. And I think more significantly, because obviously perceptions is compounded, and so this comes from an increase of 32% in 2022. So we've got an increase of 32. We've actually increased that increase by 13%. And that I think is mainly a result of intentional activities aimed at actually influencing and enhancing the brand. That's been taken by government agencies, and also because business now still sees South Africa as a good place to invest in, and South African products remain seen very positively in the world itself. And yeah, those are the main views from the study, specifically, as I said, looking at tourism as one of the components. How it relates to the offer is something that we different agencies are working on, and this is why we're having this discussion today. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Lots of insights there for us in South Africa. Lots that we have in common with countries around us in the region, and some issues that are different for us. I hope that one of the things that will come out, or that will be certainly, that we need to grow a comprehensive study on the perceptions of the region. I know we have many. I know that Brand SA and SA Tourism also compare their findings together with GCIS, and also their insights, and it definitely helps us to improve communication. But I think the time has come for us to talk about how we take this region-wide. So colleagues, we are now sitting at 70 participants. We have lots of media from across the region, locally from South Africa, as well as from other countries in the region. We welcome them. And we also hoping that we are able to move swiftly towards some very good discussion. We have had a request from the speaker from Mpumalanga to please move him further down the program, as he is finishing another meeting that he is in. And I think that would be in order. So without further ado, I'm going to ask if we can receive the speaker from Gauteng to say a few words and take it from there. I see that Ntwanano from Mpumalanga is with us. That is in order. I recognize you. We're just going to see if the speaker from Gauteng is on the platform.
Thanks, Chair. I'm here, facilitator. My name is Baba Gaugane-Diwe. I am the
Thank
head
you,
of.
Baba. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I am Baba Gaugane-Diwe. I'm the head of destination marketing at Gauteng Tourism. I truly appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts and participate in this esteemed panel from the province of Gauteng, which pride itself as the Golden City region, the glue that binds the entire country's competitiveness from the side of tourism, probably with the recent statistics released by South African Tourism and Stats SA, the province contributes over 44% of all international arrivals into the country. Of those amounts, just of the 3.9 million that came to Gauteng, it added to the already 8 million that visited the country in the previous year under review. That's a significant contribution. It's over 44%. And that says if we're to get the country working, if we're to get the region working, and if we're to get the continent working, Gauteng needs to perform 3 times more than any other person. This is a positioning we take with humility. This is a positioning that as a result of this, we have looked at ourselves as a competitive city region, not just driven by geographic boundaries, but most importantly by economic boundaries. Gauteng has everything to do with northwest towns of Klerksdorp, of Potchefstroom, of Rustenburg, towns of Witbank, towns of Parys in the Free State. Therefore, regional integration as part of the key content for this conversation will need to start with us in our local communities. Hence, the approach to take the city region approach, which looks at economic boundaries. Visitors don't care when they are in Mahalis or they are in Hartebees, that they are in Northwest, and 400 meters they are in Gauteng. They are looking for quality experiences that is seamless. There is no different tax regime in Gauteng compared to in the Northwest. So it's very important for us as we pioneer towards Sadc and continental regional integration, which starts that here in our own locations. As a result, issues that have been highlighted in the perception studies around events, issues that have been highlighted about what drives perceptions. Gauteng is quite big, with 9 billion just injected out of hosting signature event. We feel that we offer a blueprint in which can be pioneered towards how the region uses this, whether it's the Vic Falls Carnival, whether it's the Bushfire Festival in Eswatini, or it's the Desert Race in Gaborone. We think we have a blueprint that we can use to drive those numbers and also ensure competitiveness in our space. So I'm looking forward to the conversation to see how we aggregate, firstly, our own domestic offering, consolidate, visit, know our own provinces, know our own hood. Before we jump into the regional space, how do we know the region? How many of us are encouraging our own markets to visit the region and ensure that there's reciprocity before we move into the European and the American markets? We're also looking forward to media also looking broadly, because media is not homogeneous. With the digital footprint and the surge in social media, almost all of us are media practitioners who are generating content, and with social media being about affirmation, we need to see more pictures of us in the bridge that connects the 3 countries. We need to see ourselves in images that shows Africa in its totality, and not just iconic structures like Eiffel Tower, Wall Street and the like, which continues to dominate imagery that is about tourism. Imagery about tourism in South Africa should reflect a Pan-African approach, should reflect the South Africa and the region that is rooted in the African context. We should also look forward to how, as media practitioners, we report about issues of crime. And in South Africa, the most controversial issue remains how we become the only country probably in the world that unprovoked every quarter our crime statistics. Thank you very much.
Wow, Mr. Khaoganediwe, your comments, your look, everything. I think you've said it all. Absolutely. I mean, I totally agree with you. I'm sure many, many people on the panel agree with you. On many of the things that you have said, we definitely need to project a different image. Even as a country, one of the things that we do when everyone talks about who is a tourist, they think our tourists are French or Italian, when actually most of our tourists come from across the border, and you in Gauteng know that very well. I started out, in my past life, I worked for the city of Joburg, and we started I may be interested to know, we started the Gauteng Tourism Authority then. And one only had to go and see Park Station, and you'd be completely bowled over by the number of visitors coming from across the border. So definitely we have a lot of work to do, and definitely we need to start projecting the images differently. But thank you very much for those comments. And I think we need to move on very quickly to our next speaker from Mpumalanga, Mr. Ntwanano Mtungwa. Welcome, sir, and we would also love to hear your short comments, very much in the line that we've had before. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much for the opportunity. I must apologize. We're having a graduation ceremony with the Department of Tourism and the Deputy Minister, so we had to make some few remarks there. I hope I'm audible before I can continue, Chair.
You are very audible. Just move your camera a little bit, or move your face. Yeah, just there we go. We can see
Thank
you
you so
now,
much.
and we can hear you.
All right, I'm glad you can see me, even though I'm not as stylish as Baba there. And I will just like to appreciate his input and the presentation from Brand SA. What I've picked out from the presentation from Brand SA is that our country is receiving good feedback, or its image is being improved through our efforts in stopping the genocide in Palestine. And the peacekeeping efforts that we're involved in across the world. So this improves our perception as a country that is for peace, that is for global cooperation. So that bodes well for the tourism industry point of view. Our efforts in Palestine, they bring us closer to the Arab countries and the Chinese, those who become our global partners in multilateral engagements internationally. We have realized that as Mpumalanga, and as much as we're close with these countries from a political point of view, we're not generating as much tourism as we should from them. We are still focusing on the traditional source markets, whereas there's an opportunity to bring in the UAE, Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, and all our BRICS partners to really market ourselves to them and really diversify our source markets going forward. That was the first point. And linked to the issue of perception, we are receiving good feedback in terms of peacekeeping, in terms of fighting the genocide. But on the tourism side, we're challenged because there is this perception that we're an unsafe tourism destination. So we therefore need to leverage these good perceptions that are out there in the world about us to ensure that we focus very much on ensuring the safety of tourists. And we believe that the only way to do so is to involve the local communities that are around tourism attractions, is to bring the social partners such as traditional leaders, government on board so that they also become a stakeholder and they have a share in the tourism value chain. So we can only be able to do this if the communities themselves, their traditional leaders, their councillors are part of the tourism development and promotion process. So we are very much focused on the DDM, the district development model. That is why as Mpumalanga Tourism, we do not implement programs without the involvement of our district municipalities. Some of you might have visited our stand at the Indaba. We have all our districts there. We've got all our SMMEs from the province. So we're really marketing ourselves as one destination. Like Baba was saying, that tourists do not care whether they are in this municipality or that municipality. They know Mpumalanga, they know South Africa. So we then are working and building capacity for the RTOs who are providing support from a financial and marketing point of view. We participate in the district development councils of the district municipalities. We present our projects to them. We get hammered, but we want to be closer to the people so that the people understand that tourism is about them and effectively we're marketing them. I'm then coming to the issues I'm very passionate about. As South Africans, when Europeans leave Europe to come to South Africa, they want a true African experience. So they come through OR, they fly to the Kruger Mpumalanga airport, someone picks them up at the airport, they are at the Kruger, they get to the Kruger, they see animals. As soon as they finish seeing animals, they are out of the country. No economic spin-offs are generated for the communities that are surrounding that park. These tourists, they do not interact with those people. They do not know what those people are all about. Our people are proud people. They may be poor, but they are proud of themselves. They know who they are. They are proud of their culture. And instead of us marketing a European experience in Africa for Europeans, let us market our true heritage, traditions as the African people. Yeah, so what Europeans want to see is Africans in Africa living the African way of life. So we want to divert the traffic. When the tourists come to Mpumalanga, as they leave the airport, they must meet those mamas on the streets, buy avocados, buy fruits, you know. So we believe that tourism value chain cuts across all the sectors of the economy. You need transport, you need people to build the facilities, you need a whole range, you need food, you need farmers to supply food to these people. So we are then saying that as Mpumalanga, we are tired of being of selling European kind of lifestyles from a tourism marketing point of view. When a tourist arrive at OR, they see this city region, this Gauteng city region with all the infrastructure. They be surprised, are we in Africa? What is happening? Baba is busy expanding the metro there. And then they come from Mbombela. They go to the airport like I've been explaining. So what I'm saying is that we want our people to get involved in tourism. We've got a number of programs to ensure that they become involved. We are talking to a number of filmmakers because we are running nature reserves as Mpumalanga. We want to use them as locations for generating content for film. We've got Inzalo Ilanga, which is a place where there's empirical evidence that life started there, civilization started there. There's all the empirical evidence you can need. Some of you might have heard about the Adams calendar. You might have heard about the Goliath's footprint, but the world does not know about that. We're not packaging that. So we're talking to some of the creatives in our space to say, how do we package that, put it on TV for people to see, and in that way we'll be encouraging tourism. We are lucky that we're launching our own regional TV station, Mpumalanga TV. We have been working very hard to break into the national radio so that we reach the domestic market. We are also, through SAT, we meet with those service providers, I'll call them service providers or agents who are located in the other, who are spread out globally. So we make contacts with those agents. Whenever we've got content, we send to them to profile us there at no cost because SAT is paying. So this is just to demonstrate that SAT is providing support from a global marketing point of view. Some of the partnerships that we have concluded, we have Sadc, which is the South African Village and Tourism Organization, which most of you are aware of. We want them to bring their services to the SMMEs in Mpumalanga. So we want to provide value-added services to these SMMEs from a financial management point of view, marketing, so that we really strengthen their products, packaging, and all of that. So this set of video engagements is linked to what I said earlier on about promoting our heritage, the way of our people's lives. We are lucky as Mpumalanga, we are quite a diverse province. We've got the Ndebele people here, we've got the Swati people, the Shangani people, we've got the Mapulane people, we've got the Pedi people. Believe it or not, we also have the Zulu people staying in this province. We've got areas such as Bushbuck Ridge, diverse. All these people I've mentioned, they're living there together harmoniously, no issues. So it's a model for nation building that we can live harmoniously in our diversity. And we want to package that so that we show the world that as Africans, we are united, we are proud, and we are selling, and we are living, we're building our country. So this is linked to the issue of the presentation, the peacekeeping, the genocide efforts. So as we demonstrate that the Rainbow Nation is still alive, our people are living harmoniously, we also need to ensure that these values of Ubuntu, these values of cultural diversity, we package and sell that. Chair, please excuse me, I need to quickly charge my laptop, and I hope I'm not abusing your platform. Yeah. May I continue, Chair?
Yes, I think it is time. You can wrap up, please,
Okay.
Ntwanani.
Let me just quickly wrap up, Chair. I'll come through the discussions. I just wanted to indicate, I spoke about Sato Vito, the Gauteng Tourism Authority. A lot of the tourists, they use the port of entry, Lanseria and OR Tambo to come to the province. So want to cooperate with GTA, my brother Baba there, so that he assists us to, as people come for business meetings, he markets the Mpumalanga province as well through that partnership. He hosts a lot of the middle class, the cosmopolitan urban population, which has got the money. So from a domestic tourism point of view, we are going to be, he's going to be assisting us so that he markets Mpumalanga to all those black diamonds who reside in Gauteng. So I want to close, Chair, the Triland. We have an initiative we call the Triland, where we have an MOU with the Kingdom of Eswatini, the Republic of Mozambique, where we are trying to package a Triland experience for our tourists. As in Mpumalanga, we do not have the beach. Our neighbors, they've got the beach, so we want to give the beach experience through Mozambique. So the Triland is one of the most successful programs we have been doing. We are looking at improving them. We're engaging with the industry. Natalie is here. She will be presenting. So she'll speak more on that. So to close, we want tourism to not just be tourism, but to be an economic sector where our people play a role, their diversity, their way of life, is promoted, is preserved, and that becomes the draw card for tourists. When the tourists, when they come to Mpumalanga, they go and visit the village. They go and live the way. We have started doing this at a small scale, but the challenge for us has been to really firm up and strengthen the safety issues, address the perception issues, so that these tourists are able to go into our townships and leave money with our people. So we want to appreciate the opportunity. We'll be part of the discussions. That was just my opening remarks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtungwa. I think you've said quite a few things that warrant discussion, and they also are questions that many of us are asking ourselves. And I think, I just want to pick up on two of the issues that you raise. I think the one relates to direct or indirect benefits. Definitely, there is room. And the research that Brand SA as well as SA Tourism does together with GCIS demonstrates that the one key insight is that the perception for many, many tourists is different from the reality. So we've got to change the perception, but we've also got to see what we do or how we can help change the reality. We want to change the perception of our region as being an unsafe region as compared to others. We also want to change the reality in that we want to make it a safer region for tourists to visit. And also we want to see more direct benefits. And in fact, all of the research shows that, including the research that we've just seen now, is that South Africans, and that also includes people in the region, are known for their sense of Ubuntu, are known for their friendliness, and certainly when tourists meet them, they find that aspect. So let's see how we can bring in the next speaker, who I'm sure has also got very opinionated opinions about some of the issues that we've already been discussing, and also possibly some direction. Mr. Chifiwa Chivenga, who is the chair of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa. Welcome to you, sir. Thank you for waiting. And my apologies once again that we started late. I'm handing over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Tasneem, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm not going to be long, but there's just a few things that I would want to touch on. From the Sadc point of view, and I speak, as a CEO of the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, and I'm also the interim chair of the Sadc Tourism Alliance, which is a private sector body that is comprised of apex private sector bodies from the Sadc region countries. And Natalia is going to expand on that because she's a project lead on that, and she will, speak shortly. I think, from all the presentations that have been done, and when we look at tourism, in South Africa and in the region, we all know that majority of people that are traveling, within the region are those that live in the region. And we've seen that in the case of South Africa, that most of the people that we call tourists that come into South Africa are those that are coming from the region, and those that are coming from, the continent, beyond the region, and of course, those that are coming from other source markets outside of the African continent. And those that are coming outside of the African continent, there are just over 2 million visitors that comes through in South Africa from the South African point of view. I think the numbers have been shared from the region point of view in terms of how many tourists visit, our country. I think what I would want to emphasize, for the purpose of this conversation, is that as much as we do know that, we are rebounding from the effects of COVID, we do know that some markets have rebounded fully. We do know that some markets have not rebounded fully, and we still have the years of COVID that we still need to plow back from the growth point of view. in terms of international arrivals and, of course, the regional movement of tourists. So we need to keep that in mind, that as much as, the numbers, may be looking good now, the numbers still need to do better than what they are in order for more people that have left the employment due to COVID to come back, and for young people within, South Africa and within the region, to be able to get, jobs through tourism. So our job, in my opinion, should be to ensure that the region itself is attractive to the international tourist. We tried to do this in the past by using what we called RITOSA, which was the Regional Tourism Association, that governments of the region through Sadc put together, which didn't work because of the fact that other countries were not honoring their obligations in terms of making sure that the entity works. That had to be dissolved, and we're still in the process of finalizing that. From the private sector point of view, we then started to talk to each other, and then we have this Sadc Tourism Alliance that Natalia will talk about. So it shows that it is important that as a region, we get together, we pull together our resources in order for us as a region to be attractive. And to be attractive to the world, we need our journalists within the region, within various countries, to cover tourism in a way that is appealing to the international markets, in a way that it promotes traveling from those countries to South Africa, and in a way that will increase the number of tourists that are looking into South Africa. I'm not saying by any chance that we should ignore other news that are happening within the region, but I'm saying that we need to also have a balance of putting, the facts, on the table, especially to the international, art or the consumers outside of the region, so that they can see what actually is happening in the region. There are a lot of things that are good that are happening. And of course, there are a few things that one can say have happened in the past years that may not be so good, but I'm going to focus on the good, that has happened within the region and, within South Africa as well. And that's very important that we look at those things, in a way that, the rest of the world will be able to say South Africa, they'll be able to say the region or any other country in the region, is worth visiting. I think we tend to focus more on the things that, sometimes mostly, the bad news that happen in the region, but less on the good news that happen in the region. I was reading one report that's put together by the World Economic Forum that looks at the Tourism Development Index. It really shows how, as a region in Southern Africa or Sub-Saharan Africa, how we are doing in terms of various aspects as far as tourism is concerned. And I think that there are things that we can choose from that. Issues of socio-economic development, how tourism is impacting communities, how, tourism it's helping with early childhood in various community by way of donations or any other means or forms. We sort of need to look for those as well. And we cover those things as well. There are many, many projects that are being done by governments to uplift communities close to tourism attractions. In South Africa, we've got projects in Mpumalanga, we've got projects in other provinces that are meant to be given to the communities. I think we need to focus on those as well and make sure that, the world knows that, tourism does good for the development, of the country and the development of the region. So that's going to be quite important as we look forward. And I think we need to keep in mind that, the region that we live in, it's our region, and it's our responsibility to promote it. And it's our responsibility to look for those stories that may not be, popular in terms of, selling, advertising space, either on digital platforms and elsewhere, so that we can put those out there. Because the more people come into our region, the more jobs we're going to create, the more prosperous the region is going to be. So I think that we need to really pay attention to say, are we, outside of just the leisure part of tourism, where, most of journalists will focus on, are we going to focus on the hard news of tourism, how tourism impact the economy, how tourism impact the labor market, and how tourism impacts communities, and what are the good stories that have happened in various communities? There are many, many people that we can profile that have worked in this industry for many, many years, of whom, they were able to feed their families, and some of their families, joined, the tourism industry through, their parents, who have been in the industry for years and years. And I think featuring those type of stories, making sure that we show that there is some level of beneficiation, although it's not enough. I think it goes a long way, and it will encourage others, to follow suit. So my appeal is that as we look into all these stories that we write, we've got to look at other stories as well and emphasize them. It's very easy to write about crime. It happens every day. It's in our eyes. But it's also, equally easy to find stories, that deals with community beneficiation, or entrepreneurs within the communities, SMMEs within the communities, that are working within the tourism space, that are benefiting, and they're building their livelihoods. All I'm saying is that we need to find a balance, as we do our work, and we need to make sure that the good news that are happening across the country, because it's not all bad news within the country, being South Africa, within the region, there are, equally, if not more, good news and good stories that we need to carry out, so that we can get as many people to visit, and we can get the region, to be more vibrant. So my appeal is that let's look at the positive side of tourism. Let's write about those core stories of tourism. Yes, we must continue the leisure part of it, but there's business part of it, there's community part of it. There are many core stories, as I've said, that we can choose and focus on. That will do us good as a region, and that will propel, our tourism prospects. And we should be able to be, more competitive, and our numbers and our fortunes are going to be higher. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chifiwa. As I was writing down there, if I was a journalist, I think I would, there's so many story ideas you've given us and challenged us to take our journalism to another level. And I think I'm sure that there's going to be many people that are going to want to discuss that with you. Colleagues, taking note of the time, I do want to make sure that we have enough time for participants, for people attending the webinar to be able to ask a few questions. So I want to move with speed. Let me please welcome Natalia Rosa, who is the CEO of Big Ambitions. And for the purposes of this discussion, she's the project lead, as Chifiwa said, for the Sadc Business Council. Over to you, Natalia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tasneem, and I will try to be quick. Thank you also, panelists, for your inputs and also the questions that have already come through. Good morning, or good afternoon, actually. It's 12:25, the noon gun went off. Thanks for the opportunity. As Tasneem mentioned, I'm Natalia Rosa, and I am the project lead for the Sadc Business Council Tourism Alliance. And as Chief mentioned, we are the organization which is the umbrella body for the apex private sector tourism associations across the Sadc region. So in South Africa, we have the Tourism Business Council of South Africa. In Namibia, we have FNATA. In Madagascar, we have CTA, et cetera, et cetera. And our primary role is to serve as a bridge, if you will, between the private sector bodies and private sector in general and the Sadc Secretariat. We were established under the Sadc Tourism Program 2020-2030, which Tasneem mentioned a little bit earlier. And I'm very pleased to say that this document isn't another expensive strategy that sits on a shelf and gathers dust like so many of them do. It's really a great document if you feel like a little bedside reading. And you're interested in tourism and what's going to be happening in tourism in the next 10 years. Or if you like, I'm very happy to take you through it as well. And so, as I said, our mission is really to work with those private sector stakeholders and the Sadc Secretariat and other entities in tourism and beyond to implement that Sadc program 2020-2030. And the whole ethos behind that program is to facilitate inbound tourism to and within the Sadc region, the Southern African Development Community, through things like improving air access, streamlining visa requirements, facilitating smoother immigration processes. We look at skills development in tourism, regional crisis communications, and overall anything that we could possibly remove as a barrier or a challenge that would prevent that travel to and then within the region, as well as then looking at some of the opportunities that may arise, whether it's bilateral, trilateral, or regionally. So as I say, our approach is regional. We don't really look at one country and address issues that affect one country. It really has to affect multiple Sadc member states. And so, for example, a crisis that would be useful to talk about very quickly and how we work in that environment is the drought that is happening across many of the member states in Sadc, and the reputational damage that is caused by information that is disseminated potentially that doesn't have the context on the ground, essentially. So what we would do is we would work with all the different entities in those Sadc member states, from media to governments, to at least departments within governments that are involved, our members, which are the private sector associations, and we would create open communication to provide the context on the ground and ensure that we're working collaboratively rather, so that you don't get a gazillion messages from a gazillion different people, and that the messaging is aligned and it is released with agility. Just so that you know, I have a background in journalism and comms. I've worked in tourism for 20 years and in comms and journalism for 30 odd years. Yes, I am that old. And I do believe in the power of transparent and agile comms. So I'm never going to ask you to paint a pretty picture about what's happening. I'm going to ask you for balance, and I'm going to ask you to have an understanding of what tourism is. And that for me is the key opportunity. I think just talking to you today is about helping you understand the tourism industry and the value chain that sits behind the tourism industry. Because believe it or not, it is not all palm trees and pina coladas, much as I would love it to be all about people living their best lives. And so it's often not taken seriously, not even at a government level. And so we talk about this all of government approach because, you know, you might have a transport department or a home affairs department or a finance department, just even nationally making a decision which has massive repercussions for the tourism industry down the line, which you would potentially report on, but you might not think that it has repercussions from a tourism perspective. And when you really think about tourism from that value chain perspective, you'll understand that really a decision can be made in one area and it can affect another area. And we always need your help as private sector to highlight that in a very balanced way. As an example, we've just a couple of weeks ago had some messaging go out internationally about Victoria Falls running dry. So from a regional perspective, you think, well, that's not regional. That's one country, that's or two, Zimbabwe and Zambia. But if you look at the impact of that keystone tourism asset in the region and how that then impacts the rest of the region from a reputation perspective, and then tourists asking whether they should come to Victoria Falls or should they go to Malawi because there's a drought there as well, or should they come to South Africa because isn't Victoria Falls right next to South Africa, etc., etc. So really not having that balance and a real understanding of tourism does lead to confusion and misperception. And we as the private sector feel that acutely, and all of the people we support in terms of livelihoods, because then people stay away because they don't understand that it isn't all palm trees and pina coladas, and really what's happening on the ground is perhaps not what they're seeing. On the other hand, we've got incredible partnerships and support from media in many areas, as the private sector, to lobby for certain improvements to get rid of those obstacles that I mentioned, and liberalized air access policies and visa regulations are just a few of the areas where you've been reporting wonderfully not just nationally, but regionally about the issues that actually it's a catalyst for tourism actually happening. If you don't have a visa regime, which is an easy visa regime, and access policies which make it easier for airlines to access the destination, you really don't have tourism. And so I'm very appreciative for the partnerships we have in that space, as well as the partnerships, as Ntwanano, my colleague from Mpumalanga, was mentioning around Triland, which comprises Eswatini, Mozambique, and Mpumalanga, and the kind of events and projects that are happening in that space to take 3 countries and to promote them as one destination, which is what we know tourists want to do. They don't want to just visit one destination as a long-haul tourist. They want to visit several destinations. Ibrahim was talking about the interest from India in his brand SA survey. But in South Africa, we have incredible difficulty tapping this market due to visa issues. There's an African Visa Openness Index, which I'm sure you guys will be familiar with, where South Africa ranks 32nd out of 54 African countries in terms of visa openness. So what can South Africa learn from its neighboring countries, which are adopting a much more liberalized visa approach, like Malawi, for example, which recently lifted their visa requirements by an additional 79 countries to boost the tourism sector. Mozambique's done it. Namibia has a remote working visa. We've been lobbying for that in South Africa for some time, and we're going back and forth with remote working visas. So your support in lobbying for that and understanding the context and why it's important for tourism and the value chain is really very useful to us. We don't suffer from a visibility issue in the region. People who pay to travel long haul to Southern Africa know where we are. They know what our tourism assets are, Victoria Falls, as I mentioned. The real issue is around reputation management, obstacles to policy, as I've just outlined, and then this poor alignment and communication. And to be fair, we, as tourism people, are often not good at communicating with you, the media, proactively and transparently and in an agile way. But I feel that we really are, for the first time in the 20 years I've worked in the tourism industry, much better aligned. And I'd really welcome the opportunity for those who are keen to learn about the nuts and bolts of tourism beyond the palm trees and pina coladas to catch up with us on a regular basis, so we can give you the context on what's happening and help respond to any stories that potentially wouldn't see the light of day because you don't think that there is an angle there for tourism because you don't have the context. And this really is a key industry for the Sadc member states. And some of the Sadc member states, it's the #1 industry. And South Africa, it flicks between #2 and #3 in terms of the livelihoods it supports and the economic growth of the country and the exports of the country. So really to work together in a way that is balanced and responsible is my greatest wish. So I think I'll close there, Tasneem. I appreciate the opportunity and I really look forward to the discussion as well as engaging with all of you after the session so that we can really get tourism to be more than palm trees and pina coladas in the mindset of just the general public, yourselves and government. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Natalia. Also, very quickly said, but a lot in what you were saying. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I see that we are now at 68 participants. I must say, because of my initial problems in logging on, I'm not able to see the Q&A and the chat, but Timber is going to assist me. But what I'm going to do before we open up the floor, I'm going to ask the panelists to please write in the chat for everyone to see the contact details of your spokespeople or your communications people or yourselves if that's necessary. And I'm also going to offer to journalists that are going to take up the challenge that Natalia and Chifiwa put to journalists. I'm going to suggest that Mr. Chifiwa Chivenga is going to be open to the possibility of interviews by any of you that are keen on taking up the challenge and doing some pieces on some of the tourism related issues that he was speaking about. So while the panelists are putting their details on the chat, let me please invite Ms. Livowani Muchachi, who is a member of the Sadc Media Awards adjudication panel, to just briefly tell us about the Sadc Media Awards. I'm sure many people already know, but it's always useful to just get a good overall reminder and summary of the Media Awards and their importance. Livuani, over to you.
Thank you so much. A very good afternoon to everyone, fellow panel members, and all that are in attendance today. As introduced, I speak as a representative of the Sadc Media Awards, the adjudication committee here in South Africa. As a country, we have had an opportunity to host the Sadc Media Awards within the Gauteng province. And I remember the Gauteng tourism, together with Brand South Africa, they made the experience favorable for our visitors that also included local journalists. We found that during that time, tourism actually attracted most of the interest from the delegates, and that came from all the 16 countries of the Sadc region. And this is because the tourism sector on its own within the Southern African Development Community holds immense potential, and it also offers an incredible array of opportunities for journalists, also other media professionals, including content creators in general, just to be able to explore and report on what they see and experience. So today, I'm here to share the details about the prestigious Sadc Media Awards competition, which basically celebrates excellence in journalism and also encourages the dissemination of information that supports regional cooperation and integration. And by this, we mean 2 or more countries in the region working together to either solve, enjoy, or deliberate on issues that at the end of the day empower the general citizen within Sadc. Now, most of the journalists have asked us before to say, but what kind of stories do you need? What kind of stories qualify? And you know, today from the different speakers, we heard that the Sadc region is blessed with diverse attractions that journalists can also report on. In the past, we have received competition entries from journalists that focused on uncovering and sharing these kinds of stories, shedding light on the unique aspects that make South Africa and the region a prime destination, either for ourselves or even for the global travelers. So it is great to hear from the previous speaker that Mpumalanga TV is coming up. So we are grateful to hear that there'll be more platforms where journalists will be able to report on tourism efforts in Mpumalanga. And this becomes very important for us as Sadc Media Awards because this province borders countries like Swaziland and Mozambique, and therefore it gives journalists an opportunity to be able to find stories that have the regional integration element. There were also some stories that were suggested by the CEO of Tourism Business Council, Mr. Chipua Chibengwa, and it's also great to hear, Natalia, that you say that journalists won't be asked to sort of paint a pretty picture, but be left to report objectively on these kinds of stories. So we are really grateful for that. Now, just speaking directly to the journalists that are in attendance, is to say, when looking at tourism stories, there are, for instance, stories on ecotourism and conservation. Our region is renowned for its rich biodiversity, conservation efforts that are there. We can look at stories around wildlife conservation initiatives, such as those that are in the Kruger National Park in South Africa. And if you'd like to report on another country within the Sadc region, for instance, we can look at stories coming from the Chobe National Park, where we can highlight the importance of preserving, you know, the national heritage. There are other stories that we can suggest on cultural tourism, whether it's also adventure tourism, the Drakensberg Mountains, you know, bungee jumping. All that is there that some of the speakers have already highlighted on. And also what is of importance would be knowing and recognizing that tourism is a vital economic driver within the SADC region itself, as we heard from one of the speakers as well. And this also enables us not to only report on the nicer kind of stories, if I can put it that way, but it also gives an opportunity for investigative pieces on how tourism contributes to local economies, the challenges faced by the industry, and the potential for growth to provide valuable insights to stakeholders and also policymakers. Now, let me quickly get into what you can benefit then from entering the SADC media competition, where we have 4 categories. We have the photojournalism, print journalism, television journalism, and also radio journalism. Our prizes, we have 2 levels, where we have the first prize where you get $2,500, and the runner-up for each category gets $1,000 US dollars. And it's also interesting to know that within the SADC region, these are the only awards where you get awarded in front of all 16 heads of states. These are presidents coming from all the countries within the SADC region, sitting and waiting to see which country has won the SADC Media Awards leg of that particular year. And this year, the winners will be announced during the opening ceremony of the 44th SADC Summit, Heads of States and Government in Zimbabwe. That is going to be happening later this year. You can go onto the website of the SADC INT, sadc.int. You can also go onto the GCIS website and their social media platforms so that you can get to know more about the competition rules that are there, because they also include, for instance, if you're entering the print journalism category, you need to know that the minimum number of words for each story is 100 words, and that the maximum number of words that you can enter is 2,000 words. That is important when it comes to adjudication, because should your story be so great that it deserves to be awarded, but it's outside of those rules, then we won't be able to adjudicate on your story. For radio journalism, very quickly, the duration is from 1 minute to 30 minutes. And when we come to television, we're looking at the duration of 1 minute up to 45 minutes. And for photojournalism, you can either submit a single photo or a pictorial. And when it comes to tourism, I think this gives you an opportunity to take, you know, more scenic pictures and be able to submit that pictorial spread of up to 20 photos. So we are really encouraging you to enter the competition and to delve into these diverse and enriching stories, just to make sure that South Africa is also counted when we go to the regional competition. I look forward to receiving great entries covered this year. The key to winning is to ensure that we see the regional integration element. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lebohane. I think, you know, you've actually covered many of the issues, and you did it so well and so briefly that we obviously haven't had time to reach. But I think you have captured them beautifully. There's the bottom line to everyone here is there are thousands of stories, and there are thousands of angles, and there are so many different appealing angles that you could follow. And we encourage you. In fact, we are appealing, I think, from the Department of Tourism and the Business Council and the SADC Council, we are appealing that we want more diversity in the stories. We want to
Can you make it
sure
130, please?
Can we just please? Yeah, thank you. We're looking for a diversity. We want to see a diversity in journalism that reflects what is truly happening in our region. So I'm going to ask that we open up for a few questions for the next 15 minutes at least. And while we are opening up for people to put up their hands, let me start with some of the questions that have been placed on the Q&A. I will start with I'll start with one question. I can't see who posted the question, but I will repeat it. That the question says, with sports being one of the elements contributing to a positive perception outlook, the big question now is, how can we as a nation use sport as a tool to ignite both the nation's brand reputation and mood and positivity towards other perception dimension elements such as economic growth, which would essentially yield job and employment creation and in turn give you a reduction in crime? Sure, I think that's one element we haven't spoken about. I'm going to quickly pick on someone that will answer that question. I see Ntwanano, you have your hand up. Would you like to give it a shot briefly?
I'll be very brief. I can now see that you know me for long speeches. So sports tourism, we have an experience coming out of the 2010 Soccer World Cup that we have invested heavily on sports infrastructure in the form of stadiums and other facilities that support such. So we have an experience in Mpumalanga where we are working with TX Galaxy, the soccer team that is in the PSL. They are running they call them coaching clinics in the communities in terms of scouting for talents. And we have come in as MTPA to co-market with them. We were in Turkey sometime early in the year when they were off-season. They were traveling Turkey, trying to playing friendly matches there. And we went as part of the delegation to make those tourism contacts. As indicated, I spoke earlier on about BRICS and how we are trying to get into the Arabs market. So TX Galaxy is very close to us in terms of, we support them in terms of their games. At the Mbombela Stadium, we've bought a suit as MTPA, where when there are sports events, such as the one taking place on the 1st of June, we get all the tourism stakeholders there, we network them, and as such, we make sure that sports tourism really gains traction. We are working very hard to ensure that the Mbombela Stadium does not become a white elephant. We are hosting sports games there, we are hosting events there, so that the Mbombela Stadium really becomes a hype of activity. It is surrounded by a community of Matafin, which was a community that was suffered. The land was taken over. The Mbombela Metro is built on their land. And through this sports tourism, through these events, very soon we are focusing on golf because we've got many facilities that are golf related. So golf is one of the sports we're focusing on. We're trying to introduce basketball, especially in the rural areas. In Bushbuck Ridge, there's a basketball tournament there that we're looking at working with. We also have a high altitude sports center in the municipality of Emakazeni in Belfast. This is a high altitude sports center we've been trying to build for the 2010 Soccer World Cup. Fortunately, is currently under construction. So those of you who understand sports and how the high altitude, how strategic that is, you can come in and explain further on that. So I'm then saying that our interest in sports goes to the issue of involving the community. It's about making sure that the 2010 legacy project of having the iconic Mbombela Stadium located in a rural area benefits the people of the local area. When we have events, we bring the food vendors from the locals. When we invite the arts and crafts guys to display and sell their products. So this is some of the efforts we're making to ensure that sports, arts, and culture become part of the tourism package. There are many events that we're co-hosting with the Department of Arts, Sports, and Culture, so that tourism is everywhere, is touching all sectors of society. Thank you very much. I hope I was not too long.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mtungwa. I think that it's very, very true what you've said. Also, I think just in line with what you said in your opening remarks earlier, and also what other speakers have said, there's also a need to connect sports event to other regional tourism opportunities. So why not market a trip to the Victoria Falls when someone's coming to watch a cricket match, for example? I'm going to, Barbara, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip you. I'll come back to you if I do have time. I just want to quickly move on to some of the other questions. There's quite a few of them. But I think this one has been answered very well by Ntwanano. So let's go on. There's another one here about how do we compare in the Sadc region compared with Mauritius, which is part of our region, but is a big player in the tourism space. Have we looked at some of the lessons we could have learned from Mauritius? And as the happiest country in the region, but from a tourism perspective, can I just see, I'm going to pick on Chifiwa. I think you are going to be able to answer this. Are you here, Mr. Chivenga?
Yes, I'm here. And I'm trying to figure out the best way to answer this. Number one is that, yes, Mauritius is big on tourism. And simply because tourism is probably one of the few sectors that they have, it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't, as South Africa, we don't do well in tourism. In Mauritius, everywhere you go, it's tourism, it's resorts and everything else. Except when you go to town, try to build up, the commerce now in terms of companies having headquarters there for all sorts of various reasons. So yes, when you are in an island versus when you're in a mainland, things are slightly different. The way people live is different to how people live, in the mainland, and people tend to be more sort of happier in the island, except for a few islands, of course. But in this instance, it's correct. People may have, more affinity to their own country. They may be satisfied with their own country. Of course, it improves the moods, and also it becomes the happiest place, to live. So it may have a correlation as such. But I think it's more so issues around socioeconomic development that gives people more satisfaction. In South African context, when people say, or when we do the national satellite account, and we say that tourism has contributed less this year to the GDP, it does not necessarily mean that it contributed less if you look in real terms. It could mean that other industry did much better. You may find that there's a mining boom, and then the mines will do much better. And therefore, when you do you tabulate the statistics, mining will contribute more and others will contribute less. But you've got to look at it in real terms. So in real terms, the contribution in rand value or the dollar value, whatever currency it is, it's where we're going to start to see, the contribution. But from the brand, country brand perception, the mood of the country, whether people are happy, I think there are many, many other things that contribute to that. But again, smaller places tend to have, lesser problems than bigger places with various, tribes and many people speak different languages and so forth and so on. You may find that, we'll tend to have our own challenges from that point of view. But at the end, it's various aspects, but mostly socioeconomic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Barbara has also responded to that on the chats for everyone to see. Thank you. Let's move on. There are a number of people that have asked about tourism opportunities. I think there are many that have been spoken about already. In fact, one of our panelists, Mr. Mtungwa, was late coming to this because he was busy at a graduation of chefs, which is part of gastronomy tourism. So there are those kind of opportunities. We invite people who are looking for those opportunities to contact their local tourism organizations within the province. And I'm going to ask Barbara to just expand on this a little bit so that he can respond to those people who are asking about opportunities. Please go ahead, Barbara.
No, thank you very much. And I guess it's a very important aspect because beneficiation out of tourism and the broader visitor economy work is quite crucial. The mamas that are selling at Vilakazi Street are part of the first cohort of people that we will work with the police to apprehend criminals who snatch bags because they have seen the benefit of tourism. They've taken their kids to school out of people buying and out of that street being so renowned. So it's very important that as we explore issues of opportunities, we are also urging the media as they report in these aspects to focus on aspects like the value and impact of tourism beyond just the glitz and glamour that support that are put up there. If you look at aspects around the sports tourism route that my colleague was speaking about, which we launched at the Africa's Travel Indaba last week, sports tourism route, music tourism routes offers an opportunity for young people, for creatives. You can imagine, colleagues, if we use former players that played for the specific team and they are part of the people that are trained to be storytellers. They are part of the new DMCs that are now offering the sports tours. They will say, I started here at Pefeni in the dusty streets of Soweto. We moved to Ellis Park Stadium. We are now playing at FNB. We have a home village at the Naturena. And this is the story of Kaizer Chiefs that comes from a former player who now runs a DMC. That is locally owned, a DMC that start doing sports tours. If you look at aspects around CAF Championship, for example, Mamelodi Sundowns continue to be a trendsetter, is permanently going to be there. But what happens to the community of Atteridgeville or Mamelodi when the Al Ahly fans from Egypt are here? Are we organizing themselves as fan clubs to be able to take them on a tour of Mamelodi, of Atteridgeville, and as they go back on a return leg, they are able to do the same. That's some of the ways in which we are able to enhance social and regional integration through the use of sports. Sometimes we are looking for answers in difficult spaces while we have things right in front of our eyes, with the people being the key advocates and storytellers. I think there are opportunities there that we should be driving for the Sadc region. Crossing the border from Botswana into Gauteng, we've got more than 10% of the people from Botswana coming for the Soweto Derby. But who's transporting them? What are the regulations? Is it wise for them to go back after 90 minutes of a match that ended in a draw? How do we keep them staying longer in the destination? So I guess as we leverage this important route, we can imagine the story of the rugby players in the Eastern Cape. If they are to start doing the work with the communities there and say, this is a street, this is a village that houses 4 World Rugby champions, and how does it translate into sports DMCs that are able to narrate our story, our Amapiano roots. You can imagine if we say, this is a Kabza's home ground, this is where he started playing his music, he's doing global waves now, and these are part of the opportunities where storytelling could be integrated into tourism. We can have some of these people literally running successful companies, and with support mechanisms from the like of the TPCSA, from the like of the NDT support grant and other tourism sector support opportunities, I think we can turn the tide, and the benefit should be the region.
Thank you so much. Very ably answered. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. There's a very specific question from Cliff Graham of KSFM about Paris, and he's saying that he doesn't see any move to promote the Vredefort Dome, the biggest and oldest impact zone in the world, correct? I think there is a project from the Department of Tourism. It's under the branch Destination Development, and there is actually something happening around the Vredefort Dome to build infrastructure to promote tourism over there. But I also think that it would be useful to just get in touch with the Free State Tourism Agency to look at the plans a little bit more deeply. And maybe that's a story idea for you as well. I want to come, colleagues, to a very important question. And I think it's directed to Natalia Rosa. And the question is, what is the plan for unique marketing brand for Sadc tourism in the region for a state member, as Visit Southern Africa with opportunity to visit all country in one travel? And I think that brings us to the main point. Over to you,
Thanks,
Natalia.
And apologies, I'm now driving because I have to get to my next meeting, but it is a very good question, and I know it was posed by Gaylord. Gaylord, I hope your event is gaining much traction. Gaylord is from the DRC. Thank you very much for joining us. So essentially, it would be very difficult, and I think probably a bit trite, for us to create a one destination brand of Southern Africa because of the multitude of tourism assets and experiences that we have across the region that really appeal differently to different source markets, as well as to different market segments, from adventure to gastronomy, as Tasneem mentioned a little bit earlier. So when we market the destination as Sadc, we will probably never market it as one destination brand, because it would be almost impossible to deliver and convey the depth that the Sadc region offers. You would not, for example, market Europe as one destination because of the depth of experience that lies there. And so the way in which we tackle that is to work bilaterally and trilaterally with countries to market certain things. And so, for example, I mentioned Triland, where we would work with the private sector and public sector in Eswatini, Mpumalanga, and Mozambique to promote the destination as one destination, because there's a hook there. And all the journalists on the call will understand the importance of having a hook for a story. Well, it's exactly the same with marketing. You need a hook. And the same would apply to transfrontier conservation areas, for example. So we would potentially market the transfrontier conservation areas across the region, because the hook is the free or free-ish movement of people and animals, wildlife across borders. So there's something that we can hook around, essentially. From a crisis comms perspective, it is a little bit different in that, again, crises don't see borders generally. For example, the drought, if we have 5 or 6 countries that are experiencing a drought, again, we would pull those countries together. We would drive the crisis communication strategy. We would work with the private and public sectors to create and curate the content. And then we would expect those private and public sector bodies to disseminate and distribute the content and the context that we have provided them, because we've liaised with them on the ground and we have coordinated the response. So from a reputation management perspective, very much regional, and from a tourism promotion, destination brand promotion perspective, very much at a bilateral, trilateral state. I hope that's responded to your question, Gaylord, and thank you, Tasneem.
Thank you, Natalia. Yeah, okay. Yes, it does, but it also puts out a challenge to us. I think both the private sector and the media sector and government need to think a little bit more deeply about it. And then after we've done the thinking, we need to act, because I think the question does throw a gauntlet down to us. And the gauntlet is, when are we going to start marketing this region in earnest? So I think it does throw a gauntlet down to us. I hope we pick it up, and I hope we take it forward. So brings us to an end on the questions. I want to, just in summary, I want to say that some of the things that I've picked up throughout the discussion today, clearly we've got to act together as people of the South, people who live here, people who were born here in this region. We've got to work together to make sure that we address some of the perceptions of the region. We've discovered from the study that was presented that people do associate South Africa and Southern Africa with nature, savanna, safaris, animals. Those things are associated with us, as well as the friendliness of our people. And one of the things that is coming out, and that was also stressed by Mpumalanga and Gauteng, was that our political actions on the genocide case against the state of Israel has actually been beneficial in terms of our reputation, as people are seeing us as the peacekeepers. And I actually want to spend 30 seconds to emphasize that point, because it is my bugbear, that we don't do enough in this region to promote the tourism related to our political history. The world is interested in how we came to reconcile ourselves within our country, how we managed to achieve peace in the region, how the resolution of the conflict in South Africa also had ripple effects across the region, how we managed to balance being at the coal face of the Cold War, from the 80s, and how we are picking ourselves up as a region and developing ourselves as a region and individual countries. Also, other issues around crime and safety. Yes, we do have our fair share of crime. So do other regions. How do we report about it? When are we going to start talking about not only the fact that the crime happened, but how quickly we reacted to it, how satisfactorily we responded to the needs of the victims, and how we are working together to make our region a safer place, how technology and modernity are being used to promote tourism in our region. And we also spoke about trying to cover the hard news of tourism. What is the economic impact? What is the political impact? What are the good stories to tell about the region, about the sector, about the people? Are we doing profiles of business, profiles of communities, profiles of collaboration within the public and private and in between different countries in the region? What are the opportunities there? As Livuani reminded us, there's many different aspects within the field of tourism as well, to come up with good story angles and to think about how we can develop those story angles into near profiles, focuses, and opinion pieces. I want to suggest one other thing that all the panelists were saying, but they just didn't use these words, and that is that Southern Africa also presents opportunities for thought leadership in a number of different areas. Primarily, we are looking at new models of how we are taking forward the development of our countries as well as the development of our region. We do so in a way that takes the communities with us and make sure that communities are part of and benefit from. One only needs to think about the project at the Kruger National Park, where for the first time ever, they are looking at how to test the hearing of rhinos, and it is a world first, One only needs to look at the dinosaur park that is being built at Golden Gate. One only needs to look at the information center that is being built in the Northern Cape in Sutherland, where we're going to be looking at astronomy tourism and how people can come to our country to look at the skies through the telescopes, through the massive telescopes that we have built there, as well as listen to the radio signals. And coming back to the initial point that I made, which is that how our case on genocide at the ICJ is not anything new, but it is part of who we are. It is part of our history. It is part of a different political outlook that we as Southern Africans project. All these are potential story areas. All these are opportunities for those interested in the tourism industry, those interested in a career in tourism journalism, those interested in developing businesses, those interested in working in governments. All of these above are opportunities waiting to be grasped. So with that, I just want to thank the panelists. I want to thank them for participating. I want to thank them for being patient with us as we were a little bit late in starting because of our connection issues. I want to thank all the attendees who listened patiently and who passionately wrote their questions on the chat. And I want to thank most of all the GCIS for even coming up with the idea and for organizing all the logistics and being such a great support. Thank you to everyone. May I wish you a really great afternoon, and I hope to see you grasping some of these opportunities in the near future. Thank you very much. I hereby call this webinar closed.